Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a closer look at the partial solar eclipse that we will be able to see from here in Ireland on Saturday, the 29th of March. So we're here looking at the sky for midday on Saturday, the 29th of March. If we move back through time here, you should notice when the eclipse occurs. The sky should get a little bit darker, or at least it does in this simulation. So I think it may have been a bit too difficult to notice there because it happened gradually. But if we move things a little bit faster, it should be a little bit more noticeable. There we go. So I hope you saw that as it happened there. We got a little bit of a dip in how bright the sky was. Just there. So that is the moon moving in front of the sun. You don't have to get up too early for this one, but you do need special equipment to observe it. So we're going to take a closer look at this here. This isn't safe to do, trying to see this with the dark new moon there. This isn't really visible. Even with the right glasses to help you look at the sun, eclipse glasses to help you look at the sun, the moon would pretty much blend in with the background even here. You might start seeing the moon when it's close to the sun, something like this, because the sky will be so bright and the moon will be darker. It might be visible even like this with eclipse glasses or with the right protective equipment. So we can see here that this is still very early in the morning. This is only at 9:15. And this solar eclipse happens, late enough for us. Solar eclipses, sometimes you will see them as the sun is rising or as the sun is setting. And that's not ideal. That makes them a lot harder to see. Here we are at just about 11 o'clock and the moon is definitely in front of part of the sun here. We'll zoom in because I think I've gone a little... No, this is, I think, pretty close to the peak that we're going to get from here in Ireland. So I've clicked on the moon here. I need to click on the sun to show the obscuration, just how blocked out it is. So we can see there 42.3%. So not a lot. If I move either side, yeah, it goes down. If we move earlier, if we move forward, it does go up a little. Yeah, it goes up to 42.5. So I was pretty close to the peak. This is the best that we're going to get to see from here in Ireland. So again, eclipse glasses, welder's glasses, you do need a certain glass rating, I think about 13 or 14. Really, with an eclipse like this, where it is quite partial, it's not even half of the sun is covered. Even with eclipse glasses, it's going to be quite bright. So observing this eclipse by looking through a pinhole camera or allowing a pinhole camera to create an image for you is a lot safer. So a pinhole camera is really just a pinhole. If you have a sheet of paper or a sheet of cardboard or really a sheet of anything that's opaque, even an opaque piece of plastic would technically work. You poke a pinhole in it and you make sure that the sun is shining on it. So if we're seeing this eclipse here, not quite at midday, but you would want something that you're able to kind of angle towards the southeast. And we can see here that it's not at its highest in the sky, but it is, fairly high in the sky. We've just passed the equinox, so the sun isn't going to be right up at, 50 odd degrees up in the sky. It's going to be a little bit lower. I think about 30 or 40, but we might as well double check. We have these lines here. That's not the one I want. This is, and I'll just see. I don't think I'm going to have the tick marks on the side, do I? Yeah, is that 40? That's 40 and 35 degrees. So yeah, 30 odd degrees up in the sky. Definitely not the highest it could reach. And briefly, we saw Venus there as we zoomed in. With total solar eclipses, you can very often see planets in the sky. If they're Venus, at least, bright planets are visible during total solar eclipses. This partial solar eclipse is so far from a total eclipse, we're definitely not going to be able to see Venus with our naked eyes. But to observe this eclipse, really the best thing to do is to get an opaque surface, angle it towards the sun, poke a pinhole in it, and where that pinhole shines the light of the sun, put a blank sheet of paper or a white piece of cloth something that's clear and unmarked, you should see a white circle or a bright circle shining out of the pinhole. And when this eclipse happens, you should see a segment taken out of that circle, which is the moon eclipsing the sun. That's what it should look like. That's really the best way to observe it, indirectly. You should never look directly at the sun without the right equipment. And for a very partial solar eclipse like this, even with the right equipment, you're not going to see the corona of the sun. It's not really worth buying eclipse glasses if you don't already have them. A total solar eclipse is, an annular solar eclipse is, but a very partial solar eclipse like this, I'd recommend viewing it indirectly by using a pinhole camera or some other indirect mechanism. A very common model of pinhole camera, I suppose, or method of creating a pinhole camera, is to get a shoebox, poke a hole in one of the short sides of the shoebox so that you can point that at the sun, and then open the shoebox, and at the back, of course, if you poke a hole on one short side of a shoebox, the light is going to shine through to the other short side of the shoebox. So you can look into that pretty much with your back to the sun and see something like this happening. Of course, the shoebox also creates a little bit of shade. The lid of the shoebox creates a little bit of shade, and a little bit of darkness does make this easier to see. So we can see here we're starting at just about 10 o'clock. We've got the shadow of the moon creeping onto the sun there just about 10 o'clock. Just about here, about 11 o'clock, 42.5%. This will be the peak of the eclipse as we see it here in Ireland. And then continuing to move forward, the moon is leaving the sun, and we can see the last contact there finishing up at just about 12. So there we go. That's the partial solar eclipse as it's going to look for here in Ireland. And we can see the moon then off to one side. This is, of course, very close to the middle of the day, so the moon would be very difficult to observe there. You might get to see it if you have eclipse glasses or something like that. But we can see as we move later in the day, the moon and the sun will move further apart. That's our very new moon here. I mentioned in a previous video, a pretty recent video, that some people compete, a good-natured competition, compete to get the image of the newest moon when the moon has just moved out from being in front of the sun. Now, I don't think it is possible here. I don't think there is enough of a crescent being generated by the moon. But if you were to catch an image of the moon the day of a solar eclipse, just as the moon is leaving the sun, just as the moon is moving off to the side, that would pretty much be the newest moon. Now, we're not able to achieve it here, but that is where the moon is. If we get rid of the atmosphere, yeah, you can see that we're really not seeing any of the moon there at all. There's a tiny, just barely highlighted there along the edge. So I don't know if the moon's even going to give an illumination of 1% for that. It does 0.1%. So yeah, that sounds right. It might even be a little bit less. If you were able to image the moon there, illuminated that incredibly minimal amount, that would certainly be the newest moon that you're able to take a photograph of. Now, I did show in a previous video when we looked ahead at the eclipses that were coming up in March, I traveled to, Mexico for the lunar eclipse where that blood moon really looked its best. We're traveling up here to the coast of the Labrador coast, very near Greenland in Canada. And just as the sun is rising, I believe, for this time zone is when the eclipse occurs and looks its best. Now, of course, eclipses, their best occurs in a very narrow range of locations. So the absolute peak of a solar eclipse, or the best viewing location for a lunar eclipse, they can be very small areas. They can be very precise locations on the Earth. So even though this is certainly way more of an eclipse than we get to see from here in Ireland, and we can see there it's 86.5 and a bit percent. Let's see if we can get that to go up. We're getting it there up to 87%, 87.4. Maybe we'll get it. No, maybe we'll get it even higher. I don't think that I was able, purely by clicking on a map, I don't think I was able to get the exact perfect location where the eclipse gets up into the 90s. But we can see that number there it grew right up to 88.85. That number kept growing. So it looks like the absolute peak of the eclipse for this location here. I do want to make sure that time stops moving. Yeah, there we go. Just 10 past 6 in the morning. And the moon very, very close to the horizon, and the sun, of course. So that's the peak of the eclipse for this particular location. We're there 71 degrees north, even further north than we are here in Ireland. So I'm sure not many people will be in the location to see this eclipse when it's at its best. And I've seen it reported online that 92% obscured is the actual maximum that people in Canada will be able to see, just from a slightly different location. But maybe you're up there and you're lucky enough to see that eclipse. Even if you're not lucky enough to see the eclipse like that, again, we do get to see the eclipse from here in Ireland and over a large range of Europe and North America. This is a partial solar eclipse. It's just a bit more partial for us than it is for Canada and Greenland. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you get to see this eclipse. If you did enjoy this video, then please do like the video. And if you enjoy this kind of content, you can subscribe to my channel in order to see more. If you'd like to read some of this information, then you can head to my website, queebeanscontent.ie. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.